You don't remember your mother's face, only the way her hands smelled of fish guts and sea water. That's what you clung to when the hunger burnt her deep and the frost cracked your lips at night. You survived by stealing bread crusts and curling up beneath market stalls, hiding from city guards and drunkards with wandering hands. But none of that mattered the morning the longship arrived. They came before dawn. You were asleep beside a butcher's wall, your back sore from the stone, dreaming of warmth. Iron hands yanked you awake. A voice you didn't understand barked like a dog. You kicked, bit, screamed. It didn't matter. The man spoke in a tongue of wolves, and he smelled like rust and salt. You saw the axe at his belt, and the wolf fur cloak that brushed your face when he dragged you through the mud. They didn't just take you. Half the alley children vanished that morning. Ragged boys, thin girls. The old baker's son, crying for his father. No one came to stop them. The city was still sleeping. Or pretending to. Someone sold you. Maybe the guards. Maybe the same butcher whose scraps you once stole. You'll never know. By midday, you were bound in a cart with iron nails and no roof. The sky was grey, the air smelled like storm. Through the cracks, you caught your last glimpse of the only home you ever knew. Crooked rooftops, the bell tower, and the gulls screaming above. Then it all vanished behind the trees, and that's when it began. Your new life, the one that would taste of blood, salt, and chains. They brought you to a wooden fortress near the shore, a place that reeked of smoke, sweat, and screams buried in the walls. You weren't alone. Dozens of children like you. Some older, some smaller, all filthy, all trembling. You thought they would feed you. They didn't. The first thing they did was shave your head. Rough hands held your skull down, the blade scraping skin, not caring when it bled. You looked around and saw others being stripped, kicked, named like cattle. A woman in a blood-stained apron threw sea water over you, freezing, salty. It filled your nose and made you choke. You slipped on the wet stone floor. Laughter from the guards. One of them spat on your foot. Then the chains came, your wrists, your ankles. Cold iron, rusted and heavy, not to stop you from escaping, just to remind you that escape was a dream. You were herded into a dark hall where a man with rotted teeth inspected your arms, your back, your teeth. He said nothing, just pointed, left or right. You didn't understand the words, but you understood the look in his eyes. Meat, tools, that's what you were now. The next few days blurred. You were taught how to row, not with kindness, but with a whip. They beat the ones who fell out of rhythm, dragged the weak ones away. You didn't ask where. The oar was heavier than your body. Your hands blistered, then bled. You rode through nausea, through fever. They shouted in their tongue, a chant, a rhythm, and you learned the beat or tasted the lash. One night, a boy next to you whispered in your language, "Don't cry, they smell fear." He didn't speak again. The next day, he was gone. You learned the scent of blood on wood, how vomit dried in your lap, how your muscles screamed and your soul retreated. And yet, a part of you survived, not because of hope, but because rage had nowhere else to go. The ship was a monster, long, low, with a dragon's mouth carved at the prow and sails that swallowed the sky. When it moved, it groaned like it hated the sea. You were dragged below deck, into the belly of the beast, where the air was thick with sweat, piss, and despair. Here, there was no day or night, only the rhythm of the drum. You sat chained to your bench, shoulder to shoulder with slaves of every shape and shade. Some were boys like you, hardened and hollow-eyed. Others were grown men, once proud, now broken. A single mistake meant pain, a cough during silence, a slip of rhythm. Even a look out of place. The overseer watched everything. His eyes were cold as sea glass, his whip carved from braided leather and bone. You saw what happened when a boy fainted from fever. They didn't pause the rowing, didn't even speak. 2 guards dragged him like rotten meat and tossed him overboard. The splash echoed longer than the screams. That night, you stopped asking yourself if you would escape. The question now was only, how long before they feed your body to the sea? There were rules, unspoken, but iron. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't eat too fast. Don't fall behind on the oar. Don't cry, never cry. You learned quickly. Watch those who survived longer. They moved like ghosts, eyes lowered, faces blank, arms like ropes, calloused hands wrapped in rags soaked with sweat. You mimicked them. You learned to hold your breath when the guards passed, to sleep with one eye open, to chew sea biscuits slowly so your stomach wouldn't twist. One night, a brawl broke out between 2 slaves. One stabbed the other with a splintered bone. Blood sprayed across your face. You didn't flinch. You didn't speak. Just wiped your cheek and kept rowing. You understood then. Fear was a weapon, but silence was armor. Seasons passed without names. Your body changed. Your arms thickened, your shoulders grew broad, but your soul grew smaller. You became part of the ship, the creaking wood, the steady pull, the salt on your tongue. But you were watching, always watching. You learned which guards were drunkards, which ones could be bribed with trinkets, which had tempers, which were bored enough to talk. You said little, but you remembered everything. One night, a storm broke. The ship thrashed like a dying beast. The oars were pulled in. Chains clanged as the slaves were locked together in the hull. Lightning lit the world in flashes of blue and bone. A barrel broke loose and crushed the leg of a man beside you. He screamed until his voice went hoarse. No one helped. You sat still, arms crossed over your knees, rocking with the waves. You whispered the names of the dead into your palms like a prayer. When the storm passed, you were alive. He was not. Later, a new overseer came aboard, younger, crueler. He called you out by gesture. You stepped forward, heart thudding. He inspected your face, your teeth, your arms. Then he pointed to the deck. You were pulled from the rowing bench and assigned above. Not freedom, just a different kind of leash. You now served in silence, carrying buckets, scrubbing the floor, oiling weapons, close to the captain, closer to danger, and closer to knowledge. You overheard plans, raids, names of coasts, ports they would sack. Words in their snarling tongue you slowly began to understand. One night, you caught sight of a map on the captain's table, a mark on a city you once knew. A cold shiver passed through you. They were going back. To where they found you, you said nothing. Just cleaned the blood off the blade in his scabbard. And smiled. You are no longer a child. You are a smiling blade. You no longer moved like prey. Your steps made no sound. Your eyes betrayed no fear. You spoke little, but when you did, the other slaves listened. Not because you demanded it, but because they had seen you survive what should have broken you. You were not the strongest, not the tallest, but you were still here. And that mattered. The captain began to notice. He made you pour his mead, sharpen his axe, clean the underbelly of his armor. You were always near his voice now, close enough to hear when he muttered about rebellions, rival clans, and raids gone wrong. Some of the younger warriors mocked you. One called you Rotunge, rat child, and tripped you on the deck. He expected you to cry. You didn't. That night, you saw him dragging a girl from the lower hold. As slave, she fought, screamed, he laughed. You followed silently. Later, when the storm howled and the crew slept off their mead, he never woke. His body was found half draped over the rail, throat black with blood. They said it was a drunken fall. No one looked at you. You earned a new nickname. Scug, Shadow. Whispers followed you. Some feared you. Others began to seek your eyes before making decisions. You traded favors among slaves, learned how to steal rations from the hold, how to loosen a chain's pin without drawing notice. But power always draws enemies. One night, you returned to your pallet and found a dead rat nailed to the beam above your head. Its belly was slit. Its insides hung like a curse, a warning. Later that week, the mead you carried to the captain reeked faintly of bitter root, poison. Someone had laced it. You didn't drink. You brought it to him with a bowed head, and at the last moment, tipped the cup over the railing. He struck you. You bled, but he watched you differently after that. A moon passed. Then, too, the captain was attacked by one of his own men during a raid. A blade flashed in the fog. You were nearby. You didn't scream, but you moved. You drove your knife into the attacker's thigh. Deep, twisted, the captain finished the job with his axe. That night, he spoke your name. Not boy, not slave. Your name, you said nothing, just bowed. From then on, they watched you with new eyes. Some with awe, some with hatred, but all of them understood. You were not just surviving now, you were playing the game, and winning. But the cost of power always arrives. The girl who once whispered songs to herself in the dark, the one you shared your bread with, was found hanging below deck. No note, no sound, just silence. You sat beside her body until dawn, unmoving. You never spoke her name again. You learned what power demands, and what it takes. Years have passed. The boy with scabbed knees and empty hands is gone. You are taller now, broader, your face carved by wind and fire. No longer among the chained, you wear a fur-lined tunic, stand above the oarsmen who once sat beside you. They avert their eyes when you pass. You serve no throne, but you wield power, quiet, cold, and sharp. The captain died on a raid. His skull sits on a pike somewhere in Frankish land. You buried his axe, took nothing, spoke no words. But the crew turned to you afterward, and no one dared name you leader. You simply became one. Now, you command a ship. Not the largest, not the grandest, but it sails where you point. And the men row when you speak. You raid, you burn. You leave gold and ashes behind, but not for glory. You no longer remember what you were searching for. Sometimes, at night, you still hear her singing, the girl. Her voice slipping through the creak of the ship, through the silence that never leaves. You almost forget her face. That's the worst part. You never set foot back in your homeland. You pass it in the mist, your ship veering just beyond its shores. A city you once knew lies somewhere there, beneath gulls and bell towers. But your heart no longer stirs. You are not a son of that land. You are not a child of any place. You are the shadow that survived them all. One evening, a boy brings you your cloak. Skinny, silent, eyes hollow with hunger. You pause, look at him. You remember what it meant to be small and cold and hunted. You give him food. Show him how to tie a knot properly. Say nothing more. Perhaps he will last, perhaps not, but for now, he lives. And you watch the horizon. The sea never ends, the blood never dries. You are no longer human. You are the ghost in the storm. the scar that commands the awe, the price of surviving when no one else did. And somewhere in your bones, deep and silent, the child still rose,